I never expected a night with a waitress would lead to an unbelievable twist at the gala. I will never forget the moment everything flickered through the haze of candlelight. The scent of jasmine hung thick in the air, mixing with the sharp tang of champagne. Laughter echoed like a deceptive promise, but my heart raced for a different reason. Her name was Mia. The moment she served me my drink, I felt an electric jolt. Her dark hair framed her face like a painting, each strand seemingly alive. She smiled, but there was a shadow in her eyes, a flicker of something troubling. I caught her glancing at the rich crowd, her expression betraying unease. The gala buzzed with elegant disdain. Wealth dripped from every corner, yet I felt the chill of reality deep inside. I was invited because my mother had connections, yet I didn't belong. I clutched my glass, the crystal cool against my trembling hand. I just wanted to escape until Mia returned. Can I get you anything more? She asked, her voice barely above the music. I couldn't help but notice a silver bracelet peeking from beneath her sleeve. It glinted ominously, almost beckoning. I had to know her story, maybe a conversation. I ventured, my heart beat loud in my ears. She raised an eyebrow, laughter sparkling in her eyes. Not many want to talk to the help. There was a crack in her facade. It felt refreshing, even in the absurdity of the setting. We shared a fleeting connection as she leaned closer, her breath warm against my skin, but just as the evening shifted, rare moments of kindness punctuated by laughter, a curious figure stepped into view. A man in a tailored suit, too smooth, too confident, loomed over us. His smile was menacing, eyes narrowing like a predator ready to pounce. "Mia, you should be serving, not chatting," he sneered. She flinched, the air thick with tension. My gut twisted. I knew something wasn't right. "Who is he?" I whispered. Before she could respond, the lights flickered, a hush falling over the room. Someone screamed. Confusion erupted as glasses shattered, and murmurs twisted into panic. I spotted Mia's bracelet, discarded on the ground, reflecting the chaos like a warning. I reached for her, but she vanished into the throng, swallowed by fear and uncertainty. Heart racing, my mind screamed after her, but I felt the grip of the crowd, a mass of terrified faces, whispers of danger swirling around me. What had just unfolded? I stood, paralyzed, searching for any sign of Mia, but all that remained was her bracelet, glinting sinisterly as silence returned. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The echoes of chaos haunted me as I stood clutching Mia's bracelet in my palm. The gala, once a tapestry of laughter and elegance, now felt like shards of glass beneath my feet. I knew she wouldn't return. How could she, with that man lurking in the shadows? The memory of her smile flickered in my mind, but it quickly faded, clouded by the anger that bubbled within me. I slipped through the crowd, dodging wide-eyed guests who murmured amongst themselves. Curiosity and fear intermingled in their expressions, but I found no solace as I searched for her. My heart sank further with each passing moment. The evening had slipped into something unrecognizable, and I felt an ache deeper than mere concern. Outside, the cool night air embraced me, offering a stark contrast to the claustrophobia of the gala. I walked along the edge of the garden, frantic eyes darting through shadows cast by the tall hedges. "Mia!" I called, my voice barely a whisper. Each syllable hung heavy, dissipating into the night. Then, a flicker of movement caught my eye, a figure near a forgotten fountain, half hidden by creeping vines. My heart surged as I approached, breathless with anticipation. "Mia!" I called, heartened by what felt like hope breaking through the darkness. She turned, and for a moment, I thought I saw relief in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by fear. Leave. You shouldn't be here. She pleaded, her voice trembling despite her tone. It's not safe for you. Not safe. What do you mean? What happened back there? I stepped closer, desperate to reach her core. Mia, talk to me. Please. Her shoulders slumped, and she looked past me, scanning the garden with suspicion. That man, he's not who he says he is. You don't understand the danger you're in, she insisted, trembling as if every word she spoke siphoned away her strength. That I took her hand, the coolness of her skin sending a shiver of urgency through me. Then let me help you. I'm not afraid of him. I can't just walk away knowing you're in trouble. Before she could respond, the shadows shifted again, and the man from the gala emerged, his silhouette sinister against the moonlit backdrop. Ah, there you are, Mia, he drawled, a predatory grin carving its way across his face. And you brought a friend. How quaint. Mia tensed, her grip on my hand tightening. We need to go, she whispered urgently. The fear radiating from her was palpable, and it propelled me forward, urging both of us to retreat. The man laughed, though there was no joy behind it. You think you can just disappear? This isn't a game, sweetheart. He took a step closer, the air thick with his menace. You've put yourself in quite the predicament. The night closed in around us like a noose. I felt an overwhelming need to protect Mia, but I also felt the weight of my own fragility hanging in the balance. Get away from her. I shouted, attempting to mask my fear with bravado. The words felt inadequate against the tide of danger. Mia stepped in front of me, her voice resolute yet shaking. You don't know him. He'll stop at nothing to get what he wants. That I am not afraid of men like him, I replied, though my throat tightened as I said it. Your courage is commendable, but misguided, he countered, his eyes narrowing, dark and reflective like a predator's. Suddenly, the ground beneath us shifted, a sudden shift in the atmosphere echoing our dread. Mia's face twisted as if a flood of memories crashed over her. It's not just me he wants, she said, her voice barely a whisper. It's my past. If he finds out what? I pressed, but before she could answer, the man took another menacing step forward. That in a frantic moment, Mia pulled me back, and without thinking, I tugged her toward the garden exit. I felt like we were sprinting against a tidal wave of uncertainty. I didn't know the extent of what we were running from, and each frantic heartbeat felt like a countdown. As we reached the edge of the property, a pair of headlights swept across us. Within the beams, a familiar figure emerged, an old friend of mine, Ethan, grinning confidently as he hopped out of the car. Mia. He called. Eyes flitting between us. What's going on? You both look like you've seen a ghost. The man's laughter cut through the night, a vile sound that curdled my stomach. Run all you want, but the game has just begun. He'll find you. Panic surged through me as I turned back to Mia, but she had gone pale, clenching my hand as if she feared letting go. We need to leave, now, I said urgently, pulling her toward Ethan, but as we piled into the car with barely a moment to breathe, an unexpected chill washed over me. Mia turned to face me, eyes wide with despair. I can't go back, and if you're with me. Before she could finish, Ethan hit the gas, tires screeching against the asphalt, but there it was, Aga, a shadow in the distance, lurking, waiting, and a single thought tattooed itself in my mind. What had she hidden from me? The rush of wind tore through the open window, filling the tension in the car with an unsettling hum. I glanced at Mia, her face reflecting a cocktail of fear and regret, eyes clouded like a stormy sea. Between Ethan's chatter in the front seat and the heavy silence that draped over us, I could feel the weight of her unspoken words pressing in on me. Mia, I finally whispered, unable to ignore the growing chasm between us. What did you mean when you said you can't go back? What is he after? My heart pounded against my ribs, desperate for clarity, but dread clawed at my insides. She turned to me, the tremor in her voice a slap of raw reality. You have to understand, I didn't just work at that gala. It was a cover. Each word seemed to extract a toll from her, leaving her visibly weakened. I was involved in something dangerous. That man, he knows my past, and if he finds me again I can't none of us can be safe. Ethan's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, anxiety etching lines in his brow. What are you saying, Mia? Are you in trouble? A shadow of concern crossed his features. Yes, she replied simply, but the heaviness couldn't escape her, a burden that weighed down not just her words but her very spirit. Just as I opened my mouth to question her further, the headlights behind us flickered like some ominous specter. I turned in my seat to see a car gaining on us, its outline blending into the night. My heartbeat quickened at the realization that our escape was temporary, an illusion cast under the fluorescent glow of streetlights. Ethan, step on it. I shouted, leaning forward as the anxiety curled tighter around my heart. Instinct nudged at him, and soon the engine roared, the vehicle surging like a startled deer, but the pursuing car matched our speed, encroaching relentlessly. Mia remained silent, her breath shallow as she clutched my knee, her nails digging into my flesh. That I can't keep this up, Ethan said through gritted teeth, taking a sharp turn that sent the world spinning outside, but there was only so much he could do against the relentless pursuit. Mia closed her eyes, a silent mantra of fear, her lips moving but no sound escaping. What can we do? I asked, turning to her, desperation spilling from each syllable. That I don't know, she whispered, and for a moment her vulnerability cracked me open like a window shattering against a storm. If he catches us it's not just my life at stake. The words hung heavy, unwinding secrets I couldn't comprehend. I wanted to shake her, to force out the truth that was bound in her throat like a curse. But before I could voice another question, she abruptly turned her head back, and my heart sank even further when she gasped. He's right behind us. In an instant, the ambience shifted from adrenaline to sheer panic. My body reacted before my mind caught up. I leaned closer to Ethan. We need to lose him. Can you find somewhere to hide? Ethan nodded, steely determination replacing the earlier concern. There's a diner up ahead. It's the only place. If we can get in there. And the rest of his words were engulfed by a sickening crunch. The pursuing car had slammed into our rear bumper, a violent jolt sending shockwaves through my body. The world spun violently as Ethan struggled for control. My vision blurred just enough for the diner to materialize through the haze, and a strange kind of survival instinct kicked in. Go. I screamed, though it felt more like a command to the universe. The diner beckoned like a lighthouse to a ship lost at sea. The tires squealed in protest, and with a final desperate push, Ethan veered toward the parking lot, wheels screeching, but the invading car persisted, flanking us with brutal efficiency. My heart raced as I knew we couldn't keep this up. I could see the driver's figure, malicious and intent within the headlights. Mia's fingers tightened around mine, and my breath hitched at the thought of losing her. In one last-ditch effort, Ethan threw the car in reverse, knowing the move was reckless. Cover your heads. He shouted just as I felt something shatter against the window, the sound echoing into the night like glass breaking, a symbol of everything I had come to fear. That I instinctively pulled Mia down, cradling her close, senses heightened as the chaos erupted around us. The din of confrontation cloaked the diner and us within, as we struggled to make sense of our unfolding nightmare. And then, as the echoes of shouts pierced the air, our eyes locked. In that moment my heart screamed, demanding a connection amidst the madness around us. No matter what happens, I won't leave you. We'll get through this. But the shadows of uncertainty cast long across her face, and just as she was about to respond, a voice cut through the violence, sharp and resonant. Mia. You think you can just run away? You can't escape your past. The man's taunts echoed as I turned, heart sinking deeper into despair. In the chaos, hope flickered like a candle about to be snuffed out. And just when I thought we were forever cornered, Mia turned, and her expression shifted, shifting the very fabric we stood upon. Her eyes darkened with a fierce defiance I had never seen before, and I realized with a jolt the battle had only just begun. Ethan's face drained of color as he processed the threat, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. The glow of the diner flickered like fragile hope against the onslaught that loomed outside. Mia, I whispered, my heart racing as I sensed a shift within her. She straightened, the resolve hardening in her gaze, and it struck me that the fear in her eyes was slowly being laced with something else, defiance, perhaps. But before I could articulate it, she swiveled in her seat, placing her palm against the window, an inadvertent plea forged in the midst of our chaos. "Listen to me," she shouted, her voice cutting through the storm that raged around us. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. He's not just someone's coming for us. We need to hide now." I interrupted, urgency flooding my senses. I felt like a tightly wound spring, ready to snap. Just then, another resounding thud broke against the exterior of our vehicle, and I flinched. "Let me handle this," Mia said with a sharp edge, surprising me. "I know what to do. I can't let him find me again." "Mia, that's insane," I protested, panic gnawing at the edges of my resolve. "You're putting yourself in danger. We can figure this out together." But her steely gaze told another story. "That I won't let anyone hurt you," she declared fiercely, catching me off guard. "I'll distract him. You two go inside, call the police, do something." Ethan grunted, still using the rearview mirror to gauge the approaching danger. "Mia, please don't be reckless. We all just need to stick together for one. I'm not asking for your permission." She fired back, her voice rising defiantly. "You two are running out of time. Every second counts. If he finds us in this car, we're done for." Before I could reply, she opened the door, the creak of metal against metal momentarily silencing the madness that enveloped us. My heart sank, terror flooding my veins. "Mia, no!" I called out, but she was already moving, racing toward the diner entrance. "Mia!" I shouted, instinctively reaching for the door handle as if the act could tether her to us. Ethan caught my arm, shaking his head. "We need another plan. We can't just sit here." But I was torn. The sight of Mia sprinting into the diner was a visceral punch to my gut. I could see her fleeting shadow against the neon signage, a quicksilver flash engulfed by uncertainty. It wasn't just her life on the line, it was all of ours. "Mia!" I yelled again, but the urgency in my voice got tangled with the cacophony of the outside world as I noticed the car behind us inching closer, its headlights glaring like twin suns piercing the night. I could feel the heat of the engine, burning against the backdrop of my growing panic. "That we go or stay, Claire." Ethan's voice was thick with tension, forcing me to wrestle with my instincts. My heart screamed for Mia, but a surge of responsibility clawed up my spine, urging me to get to safety. We couldn't leave her, but what choice did we have? Before I could respond, an explosion of noise erupted from the diner, shattering glass and muffled voices. A sense of dread washed over me as I swung my head towards the chaos, wondering if I was about to witness the end of everything I had come to know. "Mia," I whispered, voice trembling, caught in a surreal moment where all time seemed suspended. Torn between fear and the nagging certainty that I had to act, I finally heaved the door open and stepped out into the expanding heat of the confrontation. "Mia!" I shouted, darting toward the diner, my heart throbbing in my chest. The world around me felt hazy, each life and time slowing to the suffocating weight of what we faced. I stumbled in, eyes scanning the chaos. There she was, her back against the counter, jaw clamped shut with trembling resolve. But in that breathless heartbeat, I caught sight of the stranger, his eyes wild and menacing, devoid of humanity as he advanced toward her, the space between them narrowing dangerously. A pinprick of light glinted off something metallic. I froze, realizing he was brandishing a knife. The scene unfolded like a slow-motion nightmare. My feet seemed rooted as dread sank into my bones, but a new rush of adrenaline surged through me. Instinct took over as I charged forward, desperation propelling me. "Get away from her!" Mia's gaze snapped to mine, an amalgamation of fear and a plea for help. But what I saw in the man's eyes as he turned toward me sent chills racing down my spine. "You think you can save her? How sweet," he mocked, darkness whirling around him. "You have no idea what you're up against," but I refused to let fear grip me. I couldn't let our lives spiral into chaos. "I'm not afraid of you," I shot back, words tinged with conviction, even as my heart raced through uncertainty. The moment stretched on, heavy with unspoken threats. The air buzzed with tension, the diner suddenly feeling like the last haven before an inevitable storm. Just as I contemplated my next move, the door burst open behind me, and in came a rush of fresh faces, a handful of locals, eyes wide with alarm, having witnessed the escalating commotion from outside. Mia. One of them, the waitress from moments before, yelled, her voice cutting through the suffocating air like a lifeline. But before any of us could react, the stranger lunged, the knife flashing wickedly in the fluorescent light, a harbinger of violence. The entire world seemed to pause. My heart stopped. Would this be the moment everything unraveled? Would I stand by and watch Mia be dragged back into the depths of her past? I couldn't let that happen, not like this. And as if some unforeseen strength contained in my very bones surged forth, I stepped toward the danger, not as a hero, perhaps, but as someone who simply could not allow darkness to take her away from me, from us. Mia's eyes widened as the knife glinted dangerously in the man's grip, drawing her attention away from me just long enough for the stark reality of the moment to press against my chest. The air thickened with dread, I could almost hear the heartbeat of the room, pulsating with anxiety. The waitress, still caught off guard, took a step back as fear danced in her gaze. The other patrons had blanked their minds, caught between curiosity and shock, unwilling to confront the terror that had bartered its way into their lives. I felt the heavy burden of their stares, our lives now entwined, making each moment feel life-threatening. Mia. I gasped, the words slipping from my lips like a prayer, but the urgency in my voice only fueled the stranger's resolve. Back off, he snarled, his eyes darting from the waitress to me, the focus of his wrath crystallizing between us. You want to play hero? This isn't a fairy tale, no one is coming to save her. His laugh was a taunting melody, cold and bitter, resonating far beyond the walls of the diner. That I clenched my fists, resisting the impulse to step back, to retreat into safety. Instead, I felt a familiar warmth creeping through my veins, Mia's fight igniting my own. You don't know anything about us, I declared, grounding my voice with the resonance of truth. Ethan, braver than I expected, emerged from just behind me. Get away from her, now, he echoed. It wasn't a dismissal but an assertion, a protective shield that wrapped itself around Mia instead of walling her in. You people really are foolish. The stranger's scoff reverberated, and in that moment, time fractured. A single heartbeat linked us all in a silent vow to defy the rising chaos. That flicker of strength sparked a beat of hope against the backdrop of our crisis. Unity could become our weapon. Mia, I called again, trying to reach her even through the haze of overwhelming tension. Her gaze wavered towards me, and in numerous unspoken thoughts, I witnessed her internal struggle flash before her steadfast demeanor. She was terrified, yes, but her eyes resonated a glimmer of resolve, a shattering promise that she wouldn't be consumed by the shadows. As if the world aligned in reckless harmony, the waitress suddenly lunged forward. Enough, she screamed, a piercing note of courage. Let her go. With a primal instinct, she grabbed the nearest object, the coffee pot, and hurled it at the man, liquid wrath spilling into the air like stars scattering across a darkened sky. It hit him squarely in the face. For a moment, shock immobilized him. He stumbled back, the knife wavering, disbelief contorting his features. The fire that Mia held flickered but didn't extinguish, rather, it burned, intensified, merging with the diner's chaotic atmosphere. Mia, now! I shouted, my voice barely breaking through the tumult. The waitress's courage had given us a split-second reprieve, a fleeting chance that we had to seize. In a flash, Mia surged into action, pushing past the counter in a bid for safety, ready to burst through the back exit. I followed without thinking, propelled by a fierce instinct to protect her at any cost. We stormed through the door, running into the alleyway, where the sky loomed heavy above us, stark contrast to the chaos brewed within the diner. My lungs burned with a desperate need to escape, but I glanced back for Ethan, who was trapped, caught in the chaos of the diner, the door slamming shut behind him. Mia! I gasped, frantic to catch my breath, disoriented by the abrupt change in scenery. We have to go back for him. No, she insisted, fire fueling her voice. He can handle himself. We need to keep moving. We stumbled against the shadows, shrouded in the fear of the unknown. Each turn in the alley felt like an unwinding thread, dragging us deeper into a web we desperately sought to escape. But just as we reached the next street, something shifted. The low rumble of an engine echoed off the brick walls, turning our fragile moment into a nightmare reborn. Out of the dim light, a truck rolled up, an unmistakable darkness pooling from within. The driver's face was obscured, yet something about the silhouette sparked a jolt of horror in my chest. Too familiar. Inhuman. Before I could call out, MIA's hand slipped from mine. No. I yelled, heart ricocheting in panic, but she was moving towards the truck. There was a haunting recognition in her eyes, the kind that had resurfaced in her previous battles. Stay back. I shouted, reaching for her, but it was futile. The shadows of her past loomed over her, feeding on her fear and her strength. Mia, don't. My plea fell into the chasm of uncertainty, swallowing my desperation whole. And when the driver emerged from the shadows, dawn breaking through dusk, the world tilted on its axis. Mia gasped, horror stamping her features. The figure seemed both untouched by time and cloaked in blackened memories, a link to a past she had tried so desperately to outrun. Mia, he said, a sickening sweetness lacing his tone, I've been looking for you. It's time to come home. As I watched the blood drain from MIA's face, everything I held on to began to unravel. I was left grasping at the fraying edges, a fractured understanding that her past was catching up with her, threatening to devour us all. With the world tilting beneath me, I knew there was no turning back. The night air hung thick with an uncertain chill, the kind that seeps into your bones and settles there, gnawing at your resolve. I stood frozen, the sounds of the diner fading into an unsettling silence, my brain reeling from the revelation that had burst forth like an unwelcome apparition. The man before us, the figure cloaked in shadows, carried a weight of memories neither of us were prepared to face. Mia. I attempted to reach her, to bridge the vast emotional chasm that stretched between us, but she was entranced by the specter of her past, her feet rooted to the ground as if some invisible force had shackled her in place. It was as if the night had conspired against us, and every flicker of hope we had mustered now lay crumpled at our feet. Mia, I said again, softer this time, taking a tentative step forward. You don't have to go with him. You have a choice. Her eyes met mine, swirling with confusion and turmoil, but before she could respond, the man chuckled softly, a low, eerie sound that wove a creeping dread through the alley. Choices, dear Mia, can be quite a luxury. We all know what happens when one runs from their family responsibilities. His voice, dripping with a venomous familiarity, ignited a primal fear deep within me. I wanted to lash out, to scream, to shake Mia out of her trance. Don't listen to him, I urged, fierce determination coiling in my chest. You're not alone. You have me, and Ethan. We're here for you. For a heartbeat, the moment stretched, the air thick and suffocating with unspoken words. MIA's breath hitched, and the flicker of hope I had seen earlier fought to spark back to life just as the desperation and fear threatened to snuff it out. You don't understand, do you? The man stepped closer, his shadow stretching out like dark tendrils reaching for her soul. You think just running away will change anything? There are debts to settle, and your time has come, dear sister. The word hung between us like the sound of a bell tolling. I grasped for understanding, struggling against the swell of disbelief. Where had this man come from? Who was he? Reflection of a life Mia had fought so hard to escape. My heart raced, wrestling with the impending realization that in her past resided an entire life I knew nothing about. Mia, I pleaded, please, don't let him manipulate you. As I spoke, something flickered across her features, a flash of recognition followed by a wave of anger that seemed to gather strength from my words. You don't get to decide my fate. She yelled, her voice crackling with power, her fight rising to the surface. You left me. You think you can just enough. He roared, the intensity of his voice silencing her momentarily, drawing everyone's attention back to the dark underbelly of our situation. He took a step closer, a predatory gleam igniting in his eyes. You will come home, whether you want to or not. My stomach twisted with dread as realization settled in the pit of my gut. This wasn't just about Maya, it was about a whole world I had inadvertently stumbled into, a world riddled with ties and expectations buried deep beneath the surface. I needed to protect her, but I had no idea what this man was truly capable of. Stay away from her. I shouted, exerting every bit of courage I possessed. I stepped into Mia's line of sight, forming an eager barrier between her and the stranger. You don't have any power over her anymore. A dangerous smile curled his lips, the air crackling with tension as he regarded me like a mere nuisance. That's where you're wrong, he remarked, stepping back slightly, feigning disinterest. She belongs to a legacy you cannot even fathom. Before I could fully process his words, he flicked a hand open, and in an instant, two dark figures emerged from the shadowy corners of the alley, unquestionably his cohorts, their presence looming like ominous clouds ready to unleash a tempest. It was the moment I had feared most. An impending sense of danger surged through the air as time unfurled like a bad dream. I turned back to Mia, desperate to pull her from this nightmare. We have to run. Now. But. As I reached for her hand, I felt her withdraw from my grasp, her gaze still transfixed upon the man who had just unveiled bits of her history. The wavering spark in her eyes ignited a painful realization. She was tethered not just to the here and now but to a past that still sought to cage her. I can't, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Tears glistened on her lashes as she faced the abyss of her own fears. I need to face this. In that moment, everything tilted on a precarious axis. I felt the breath leave my lungs as her words sliced through the darkness. I had hoped her newfound courage would lead her to freedom, but it seemed to be a different kind of surrender. Mia. I cried, panic threading through my tone. There, while shadows gathered around us, she teetered on the precipice of a decision that could turn the tide against everything we had fought to reclaim, and as her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, the jarring reality gripped my heart with a vice. I could almost hear the walls of our story closing in, feeding off her uncertainty. I had just stepped into a perilous battle for her very soul. The night stretched before us like a boundless void, a swirling tempest of choices uttered and yet unmade. The sound of the truck's engine growled, a growling beast hungry for chaos, and then, with a final push, the man stepped forward, casting aside the shred of pretense that might have lingered. Mia, he said, voice smooth as honey, it's time to come home. A crack echoed through the alley as I felt her torn spirit struggle beneath the weight of familial loyalty, the looming shadows swirling tighter around us, threading an intricate web of dread, hope, and a gut-wrenching realization. And as the world shifted beneath us, I stood braced for the collision ahead, unsure if I could hold on to her, or, in the end, if I would have to let her go. The night deepened, the air thick with unyielding tension. Time itself felt fractured, suspended in the raw intensity of that moment. I stood there, heart racing, every instinct screaming for action. Mia remained transfixed by the man, her expression shifting like shadows across a flickering candle. I could sense her internal struggle, a battle between the past she was desperate to escape and the pull of familial loyalty that threatened to reclaim her. Mia, I said again, desperation infusing my voice, you can fight this. You're stronger than you realize. Suddenly, one of the newcomers stepped closer, a dark silhouette illuminated by the flickering neon sign above. I could see the glint of steel tucked into his belt, an unsettling promise of violence tucked beneath his calm demeanor. My body tensed, ready to protect her at any cost, but she surprised me by stepping forward, her chin raised defiantly. I know who you are, she said, her voice a mix of bravery and vulnerability. You think I'll just follow you home like a lost puppy? You're wrong. I'm not that girl anymore. Her words wavered, like the flickering flame of a candle, but they carried the weight of her intended resolution. The man before us smirked, his confidence unwavering. Your bravado is admirable, but it won't protect you. I wish you could see the full picture. Mia, how could she trust this wraith of the past? I tried to step near, to encircle her in my courage, but she raised a trembling hand, halting me. Let me handle this, she whispered, her voice trembling, but with a strength that both frightened and reassured me. As shadows danced and circled, I spotted Ethan approaching cautiously from the diner, the sound of his footsteps muffled by the pulse of my fear. We can't let him take you, Mia. Ethan called, his eyes darting between us. Whatever he says, it's a trap. The man's eyes narrowed, and the corner of his mouth curled with amusement. Your little friends can't help you now, Mia. You're bound by blood, a bond much more potent than friendship. My heart thundered in my chest. I had thought that Mia's connection to her past would fracture, but instead, here it thrummed, alive yet threatening to consume her whole. You're stronger than this. You are not him. I pleaded, reaching out again. You don't owe anyone anything. Not him. Are you truly willing to fight for her? The man taunted, his voice a silky lure into the depths of despair. To battle against your own mortality. Suddenly, Mia turned towards me, and for a fleeting second, I saw the girl I loved flicker back into existence, a mixture of vulnerability and defiance in her eyes. But just as quickly, it dimmed under the pull of her dark family ties. What if he's right? She whispered, questioning herself more than me. What if all this time I've been running from my responsibilities? From who I am? Mia, this is not the time to doubt yourself. I exclaimed, feeling the gravity of every second steal the hope between us. You fought so hard to escape this. In that moment, a gust of wind whispered down the alley, cutting through the stagnant air. The man's stare intensified, as if seeking to pull forth Mia's lingering fears. It's too late for answers you don't want. You're coming with me, one way or another. That I could feel the cold touch of disappointment flooding my veins as Mia's resolve began to falter, and I took a step closer, sensing the shadows swirling thicker around us. Ethan's aware gaze darted from the man to Mia and then firmly back to me, a silent plea woven into the fabric of his stare. Don't, Mia, Ethan urged, cutting through the tension like a knife. Don't let family hold you back. We're your family now. Don't choose a legacy of pain. Choose life with us. For a heartbeat, Mia's resolve flickered under their combined words, and I felt the brush of hope tingle at the edges. Maybe there was still a chance if she truly wished to tear herself away from the shackles, but the man laughed, a guttural sound that echoed through the alley like the impending tolling of a death knell. You think they can save you? They'll crumble when faced with the truth. Daddy's debts don't disappear. He turned, gesturing to his comrades, who stepped forward with an unsettling synchrony, closing the space between us. You know nothing about the world you're tethered to, Mia. And now it's time to enlighten you. What he left unspoken lingered heavily in the air. It resonated deeply, striking chords of dread within. I could feel the tremor in Mia's body, 1,000 emotions grappling for dominance, and for a moment, all I wanted was to pull her close, to shield her from whatever horror lay ahead. Mia. I shouted, trying again to reach her, but time felt cruelly static, our anguish poised at the brink of despair. Please. Then I saw it. The faintest shimmer of resolve returning to her eyes, the glimmer of courage as she wrestled against the tidal wave of doubt. No, she said, her voice a whisper intensified by an unyielding determination. I won't go back. But before hope could solidify into action, the man lunged instinctively, closing the distance with the fire of betrayal set ablaze in his gaze. This time, you don't have a choice. A cacophony of noise erupted around me as chaos ignited. The boundaries of our fragile universe fractured anew. I felt the heat of rage surge through me as I lunged forward instinctively, but time shifted into a blur, the world spinning like a tempest. And in that terrifying moment, an incredible scream burst forth, one that shook my very core and echoed through the alley, leaving me breathless, a cry that could only have come from Mia. Help. Somebody help. For the first time, the shadows recoiled in uncertainty, as if the air itself had drawn back. Panic erupted, fingers danced around my tightening chest. I turned to see her still standing her ground, flanked by the menacing figures, but courage spilling forth like the dawn breaking through the night. But even as I fought to reach her, the realization punched me square in the gut. There were fates worse than capitulation, and we were plunging towards one that could shatter us all. In that unforgiving moment, I knew now that whatever legacy Mia sought to reject was closing in faster than we could ever imagine, his words weaving an intricate, painful truth that would soon crumble our fragile dreams of a shared future. With the eerie calm descending upon us, I turned toward the approaching headlights that flooded the alley, desperately wanting to catch the eye of the stranger who held our fate in their hands. And as the vehicle screeched to a halt, I realized with shock, the night was not finished with us yet. As the headlights cut through the darkness like a beacon, I squinted against their brilliance, the shadows momentarily retreating. The acrid smell of burning rubber mixed with the sulfuric tang of fear lingered in my nostrils, every nerve in my body screamed for action, but I felt paralyzed by uncertainty. The moments dragged on, and the figure emerging from the car was a silhouette against the glare, a figure I had never expected to see again. Mia. Get back! I shouted, my voice echoing through the alley, drowning in the anxious throbbing of my heart, but something innate within me felt the pull of the newcomer. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face that sparked a maelstrom of confusion and dread. It was Layla. My breath caught in my throat as memories flashed like photographs in my mind, the laughter, the shared dreams, the promises made under a starlit sky. I hadn't seen her since that fateful night when everything unraveled, sending us spiraling into our divergent lives. Mia. Layla's voice rang out, cutting through the tension like a knife. Get away from them. You don't have to do this. The man with the steel glint shifted his attention, the flicker of uncertainty tainting his confidence. Ah, Layla. You've come to play savior again. His tone dripped with disdain, a cheap imitation of power that only further fueled the chaos brewing around us. Mia faltered, her gaze split between the two women who represented entirely different facets of her life, the girl who embodied her haunting past and the friend who epitomized the freedom she yearned for. The shadows twisted between them, feeding off the swirling indecision stirring in her heart. Mia, I urged, desperation pouring into my words. Layla's right. You don't owe him anything. You can choose what happens next. As if sensing the subtle power shift, the man took a step forward, a sneer creeping onto his face. It's amusing to see you all rally around her like she means something. Let's not pretend this is about love or friendship. This is blood. She is bound to her roots, and no matter the struggle, those roots always grow back. No. Layla shouted back, her voice laced with fervor. She is not your puppet anymore. You have no power over her, not after everything you've done. Mia's eyes flashed with an emotion I could barely comprehend, a mixture of anger, fear, and an echo of powerful resolve. I longed to reach out, to pull her into my arms and away from these turbulent waters, but I stood frozen, witnessing a battle generated not solely from external forces but fueled by demons woven deep within her spirit. Ethan stepped beside me, his gaze locked on Mia, determination etched in his features. This isn't about bloodlines or legacies, Mia. This is about you. Choose yourself. We will fight for you. No one can take you away from us. As the words spilled out, I could feel the fragile web of hope weaving around us, but doubt loomed like a dark cloud, threatening to storm our sanctuary with despair. And then, from the murmur of fear and uncertainty, a flicker of courage sparked to life within Mia. No more games, she said, her voice steadied, the tremor of battle affirmation coursing through her. I won't go back to a place that will only drag me down into darkness. I am what I choose to be. But before anyone could process the shift, the man's demeanor twisted, his shadow-veiled menace directed like a knife at Mia. You're making a mistake you'll pay for dearly, he spat, but something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. Was it disbelief, or fear? Suddenly, the tension skyrocketed, an electric pull that tingled the air around us. Layla stepped forward, unyielding, bringing the weight of her own past burden to bear. You think blood defines love, but you're wrong, she said, her voice ringing out with clarity. Love is a choice, and before she could finish, he lunged toward her with the speed of a predator. In that split second, adrenaline surged through me, snapping my limbs into action. I sprinted toward Layla, desperate to protect her from the man who yearned to ensnare Mia once more, but there was no time. The man's hand shot out in a blur, and just as quickly, Layla gasped as she fell back, her body collapsing onto the pavement in a flurry of shock and grace. A sickening thud echoed as she struck the ground, the moment stretching long and jagged like shattered glass. Mia. I screamed, the world tipping into disarray as anger swelled, mixing with fear for the girl I loved and the friend who had returned just in the nick of time. Mia's expression transformed into something fierce, ignited by protective rage. You will not take her from us. The alley erupted into chaos, emotions cascading like waves, crashing into one another as time spiraled out of control. I moved to Layla's side, my heart thudding violently against my chest, trying to check her breathing. Somewhere in the madness, I could hear the man's low laugh vibrating through the air, as if he reveled in the havoc he had conjured. The shadows whispered around me, twisting my vision into a haze while the fingers of despair curled around my heart. But there, through the wild tempest, the glimmer of hope flickered along with MIA's determination. And yet, shadows seemed to coil tighter around our fates, the night's twists only just beginning to unfurl in ways I couldn't begin to fathom. Mia, hold on to your courage. I shouted as the dark figure curled at the edges, his form flickering against the light around us, but in that moment, I knew. Whatever lay ahead was a tempest I couldn't escape alone, and the shadows of our past were creeping ever closer, enveloping us in uncertainty as we fought against a tide we had yet to fully comprehend. The quiet before the storm loomed heavy, and as I turned back to Mia, my heart pounded with both hope and dread. The night was not yet finished with us, nor would it show us mercy. I held my breath as I knelt beside Layla, her skin pale against the asphalt, a ghost of the vibrant woman who had burst into our lives so suddenly and drastically. The chaos swirled around us, every yell and primal shout blending into a cacophony that blurred the edges of my comprehension. But all I could focus on was Layla's stillness, the way her eyelids fluttered as if trying to swim against an undertow of darkness threatening to pull her under. Mia, we need to get her out of here. I barked, desperation igniting my resolve as I pressed my hands against Layla's shoulders, searching for any hint of life in her battered form. A wet, crimson stain began to seep into her shirt, blossoming like a dark flower against the unforgiving night. Mia. Ethan's voice cut through, suddenly urgent. He was still standing, fierce like a sentry against the man who had cast himself like a dark specter in this hour of need. We can't just let him get away with this. But even as I watched Mia grapple with the gravity of her choice between the safety of the familiar and the call of a defiant future, I felt an unexpected touch on my shoulder. I jerked, the raw instinct to protect surging. It was a young woman who had appeared out of the murky shadows. She moved with an aura of quiet strength despite the frantic energy escalating around us. Help me. She cried, her eyes wide with urgency. I have a car close by. We can't stay here. Who are you? I asked, glancing between her and Ethan while fear gnawed at my insides. The man was circling us, the twisted grin still plastered on his face, electric tension crackling like lightning in the air. Mina, she replied with conviction, her voice steady. And I know what he is, and I know what you all are really fighting for. Time is not on our side. If we don't leave now, he'll regroup and he won't hesitate to come after us all. Mia grit her teeth, her eyes aflame with an intensity that put the oncoming storm to shame. You don't understand. I can't just abandon her. The sense of urgency swelled, but even amid the swirling chaos, I could see the storm brewing in Mia's mind. Was she going to choose to fight against the man who had tormented her far too long, or would the weight of responsibility and fear drown out her heart's yearning for liberation? Mia, we can't save her if we're stuck here. I breathed, leaning closer to Layla, feeling the warm pulse of her life beneath my fingers, fragile and fleeting. Panic knotted in my throat as my eyes flitted to the man, still watching us with a curious smirk, seemingly entertained by the kind of suffering that veered dangerously close to tragedy. Mina stepped even closer, her expression hardening. We can't save Layla like this. We have to fight wisely. You don't owe him a dead friend, Mia, you owe it to her to live fiercely, to fight back. There's always time later to come back. Shouts and footsteps approached from the end of the alley, the world tilting on its axis from a blend of hope and despair. I turned back to Layla, whose palm had grown cold, fingers weakly twitching. Was that a sign? Mia, please. I urged, the fire in my soul amplifying into a roaring blaze. You don't have to choose between them. Fight for them both. That seemed to ignite something in Mia, sparking her into action. I'm not leaving Layla. Her voice erupted with the primal charge of a wild animal, but in the next breath, her insistence wavered like the flicker of a candle about to be blown out. Mina looked to me, exasperation painting her features. Time isn't on our side. I promise we will get her help, but we need to move now. The sound of footsteps escalated. In that moment of indecision, the man lunged. But he wasn't coming for Layla, he was striding ominously toward Mia, a predatory glint in his eyes that spoke of calm arrogance and cruel certainty. That I leaped in front of her, desperately wanting to shield her and deflect the dark fate that hung over us like an iron chain. "You'll have to go through me first," I screamed, heart thick with terror, but instead of gripping the reality of conflict tightly, Layla's fingers suddenly pressed against mine, infusing me with a warmth that jolted through my entire being. "It's okay," she murmured softly, her voice so faint I almost didn't hear it. "You have to trust them." The world paused, thundering silence all around, except for the rapidly approaching footsteps closing in like the beat of a drum, a countdown to chaos. Layla's eyes met mine, a flicker of vulnerable strength igniting within their depths. "Promise me, Mia, promise me you will not let him win." Everything shifted then. It was more than just a battle, it was a choice about who we were and who we would become. As the dark figure approached, my heart raced, and panic hummed in my veins. The shadows lunged forward, and beneath their suffocating weight, hope flickered, fragile as a newborn flame, and then, with that dizzying clarity and deep-seated fear, a revelation burst within me, a truth that had been rattling behind my ribcage like a caged bird desperate for freedom. Before I could process it fully, I saw the man stop just a few feet away, his eyes narrowing in acknowledgement of something that neither Mia nor I had yet realized. Or perhaps it was a knowledge lost to me, a piece of our entwined fates that would change everything, capable of unspooling the very fabric of our lives. But there was no turning back now. The night had woven its tapestry of pain and uncertainty tighter than we had anticipated, and as I turned to face the daunting challenge ahead, I could feel the shadows breathing down our necks. Fear surged, clashing with resolve, and with one last deep breath, I braced for the storm looming on the horizon, knowing it was just the beginning of a reckoning that would echo far beyond this dark alley. In the chaos that had become our existence, the moon hung high like a silent witness to the unraveling truth. Time slowed as the shadows threatened to engulf us, pressing down with an oppressive weight. Each heartbeat pulsed a reminder of the stares from both that man and my own sense of worth, both vying for dominance in a world that felt as if it would swallow us whole at any moment. "Mia, please," I whispered, desperation etching itself deep in the marrow of my bones. This was more than a battleground. It was a culmination of every moment she had fought to escape her past, and I could feel it slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. The man before Usher family moved further into the light, casting aside the shadowy veils that had kept him hidden. "You're still the same girl who let fear guide her choices," he sneered, his dark eyes glinting with an unsettling confidence. "You think you've changed? Run away. Join a family of friends. They cannot save you from what you owe." But somewhere beyond the chaos that threatened to pitch the world into oblivion, I saw the flicker of something inside me, a shift, a determination rising like a phoenix from ashes. No longer was she just a girl burdened by a family legacy, she was a woman forged by her resilience, hearts entwined in love, created from the fires of dreams she had refused to let die. "Shut up!" she shouted, the fire in her soul sparking a tumult that twisted the air around us. "You have no power over me." It felt like an invocation of all those times she had doubted herself, a rallying cry echoing against the gnarled bonds of her past, unshackling her from the bonds that tethered her to, quite frankly, a legacy of pain. The man faltered for a brief instant before crouching into a fighting stance, the predatory grin never leaving his lips. "You foolish girl. You think you can simply walk away?" His malevolence slithered through the air, saturating it with the stench of darkness. But there was no room for doubt in the air around Mia now, only the urgency of the truth revealed. "No," I said fiercely, stepping towards Mia, feeling her strength pulsing between us. "You're wrong. She has everything: friends, love, a future she's fighting for. And there's nothing you can do to take that away." In that moment, amidst the swirling chaos, the cacophony of voices began to merge into an incomprehensible roar, spanning everything we'd fought for. Layla's pulse under my fingertips flickered like the last embers of a dying fire, and with it, the weight of our shared truth clung like the last drop of sunlight before the storm swallowed darkness whole. "Mia!" I felt my heart clench in my chest as I fought to ground her against the storm that raged within her, the darkness threatening to rip us apart as the man lunged. Suddenly, with a swift motion, Mia stepped fully into her power, defiance carving a path through all the doubt and uncertainty. "No!" she shouted as her palm connected with his core in a sudden burst of strength, and in that moment it was as if the world slowed down to a mere breath. The impact divided time, sending waves coursing through both of us, a fierce reminder that no matter the past that pursued her, she was not bound to it any longer. There was a flicker of absolute disbelief in his eyes, a momentary crumbling amidst all the bravado he had built his identity upon. "How dare you?" But it was there, amidst the chaos, that reality hit us. His darkness stumbled, lost in the light Mia now created. That light flowed from the acceptance of her truth, the unfathomable realization that she was not just a legacy, she was a choice, and with that choice, the world shifted once more, and I sprang into action beside her. "We can't do this alone," I shouted, and I could see Ethan darting forward, fueled by our collective courage. We were united, three souls bound by fate, and together, we surged like a tidal wave of resilience against the encroaching darkness. The air vibrated with energy as Layla's voice burst forth, "Ill help. Let's fight together." The sound anchored us as we pushed against the pull of despair, the invisible tendrils attempting to snare our hearts into an abyss. As if ignited by some unspoken pact, we moved as one, a symphony of solidarity that clashed against the lingering threats tightly bound in shadows. The man faltered under the unrelenting surge of our collective strength, the power of love, a force that illuminated even the darkest moments. "Enough," he groaned, desperation evident as he stepped back, the darkness fracturing under the illumination of our combined spirit. Each step forward felt like an incantation, a promise that the darkness would never extinguish the light we unfolded. Just as we lunged closer, I could feel the turning tide, like the surface of the still lake shattering under the raw touch of chaos. And in that space of vulnerability, a part of Mia unfurled, deeper and more profound than any of us had realized. With every ounce of courage straining at the joints of my heart, I cried out, "Choose to fight for each other. You have the power. You'll always hold the strength that drives away the darkness." Mia turned to me, and it was there everything I had longed for, the connection we had built over the tumultuous journey, resonating through her sorrow-laden gaze. "I'm ready," she declared, piercing through the tension like a lighthouse in the midst of a tempest, and in that breath, amidst the swirling chaos, I felt the ground beneath me shift. We stood on the shores of possibility, ready to live fiercely in each moment, regardless of the shadows that swirled. For every fear, every ounce of despair that might have lingered, we chose to rise together to confront the past with the dazzling vibrancy of resilient hope, and as the dawn broke beyond the horizon, the world inside that alley shifted irrevocably. The shadows slipped away, diminishing in the face of our burgeoning truth, the flame igniting in the deepest recesses of our souls. As the man recoiled against the light, I realized in that potent moment our lives had been forever intertwined, a boundless dance against darkness, where we not only faced our fears but chose to rewrite our destinies in hues of resilience. "How can I let go?" Mia whispered, the sound tentative yet filled with the undeniable spark of rebirth. The smile that broke across my face was the promise of reunion. It was the understanding that, despite the crushing weight of inherited burdens, the battle for our freedom was just beginning. All that had haunted us would forever remain, yet hope flourished, casting brilliant shadows over the path ahead, cheering us on to embrace our stories without fear. And as I pulled Mia into a fierce embrace, whispering promises of love and acceptance, I knew whatever darkness lay ahead, we would face it hand in hand, united in a bond forged by courage and understanding, with the dawn's light shimmering upon us. The final words rolled from my lips, my heart soaring in that delicate expanse. "Together, we are unbreakable."